So my name is Catherine Jacob, and on behalf of Vince Cullen, myself, and the whole of the Raft to Freedom community, I'd like to welcome you all to this special meeting of Raft to Freedom. Particularly warm welcome to anyone joining us for the first time. And a sincere thank you to Vince, who's supporting us on tech this evening or today. If you haven't yet subscribed to the Raft newsletter, you can do so at rafttofreedom.org, and Vince will post the link in the chat. The meeting is being recorded, but we'll switch the recording off after Martine has spoken. Participants at RAF meetings need not identify as struggling with addiction or even as Buddhist. All that's required is an open, caringly curious mind. After all, each of us experience moments of craving, confusion, and reactivity, conditions Gautama the Buddha described as universally human. So whether you're working with difficult habits, exploring new perspectives, or simply looking for a more peaceful way of being, you are very welcome here. Just tell you a little bit about Raft. In early Buddhist teachings, Gautama described a way of crossing from the dangerous shore of being caught up in harmful patterns that lead to pain, difficulties, and disappointments, to a safe shore of clarity, peace, and well-being, and freedom. Here in our Raft community, to make the crossing, we build a raft, constructed from the tools, insights, perspectives, strengths, and attitudes we can cultivate along the journey. Each of us is the captain, navigator, and crew of our own raft, yet we make the crossing together, supporting one another through shared learning and practice. Each week we explore a new chapter and its practices. We meet every Tuesday and Sunday to reflect on the topic of the week and engage in self-reflection prompts. Participation is always warmly encouraged, but always optional. The Raft framework is rooted in Gautama's 4 realizations, which we understand as 4 stages on the journey to freedom on our raft. R is to recognize, to clearly acknowledge that life can be painful, difficult, and disappointing. And this honest recognition is the starting point for all transformation. A is to abandon, to see how craving, aversions, compulsions, unhelpful patterns of thinking and behavior intensify suffering, and to actively abandon or let go of these patterns through understanding and skillful release rather than force. Freedom is to become intimate with moments when craving, aversion, compulsion, and confusion fall away. Moments of clarity, non-reactivity, ease, and freedom in the here and now. These glimpses show us that freedom is possible and help us trust in its reality. T is to train, to cultivate wisdom, ethical integrity, and mindful awareness, Gautama's middle way, so that we can creatively and wholeheartedly engage with this life, support others, and flourish together in this lifetime. While Raft rests on timeless Buddhist principles, we enrich our learning by weaving in helpful insights from neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy. And Raft integrates these perspectives to support anyone wishing to move from suffering towards clarity, resilience, and general well-being. We acknowledge with gratitude the inspiration we draw from the work of Martine Batchelor, particularly his cartography of care, as well as the teachings of Martine Batchelor and Bernard Kloss, all of whom have helped shape the ethos and direction of this programme. In recent weeks, our session on feeling tone have sparked deep and thoughtful conversation. What exactly is feeling tone? How does it influence craving, aversion, and our moment-to-moment choices? And how might clear awareness of feeling a tone help us both abandon harmful patterns and recognise emerging moments of freedom? To help explore this more deeply, we are honoured to welcome Martine Batchelor. Martine is a Buddhist teacher and author known for her clear, practical teaching on mindfulness, ethics, habit change, and compassionate action. A former Zen nun in the Korean Son tradition, she later trained in insight and early Buddhist approaches, bringing these traditions together in her work on attention, compassion, and freedom from reactivity. She is the author of several influential books, including Let Go, A Buddhist Guide to Breaking Free of Habits, The Spirit of the Buddha, and Meditation for Life. She teaches internationally and is widely respected for applying Buddhist principles to contemporary challenges such as stress, emotional difficulty, and compulsive behaviours. We are truly grateful that she's agreed to spend this time with us to explore what Raft calls the second anchor of mindfulness, feeling tone, Vedana, and how we can learn to feel our way to freedom. Martine, thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours.
Good. Thank you very much, Catherine, and warm welcome. And it's very nice to be with you here. And this is also raft and recovery is something very close to my heart. And I have thought about it and have a chapter on it in Let Go. So I became interested in habits because I could see that meditation at one level help you to feel better, but it generally did not last long after the retreat. Then I became interested in why, and then what I realized is that there were some patterns, there were some habits. So then I wrote the book about habits, but then I thought, why the habits? In a way, how does it work, these habits? What happens? And that's why I became very interested in what is called as Vedana, which is, we translate here as feeling tone, or the tonality of experience upon contact through the senses. So when we talk of feeling tone, it's very important to see that we're not talking about emotion. We are talking about something which is much more basic, which is really that immediate kind of tonality we experience upon contact through the senses. We can do this with just colors. I mean, colors generally green, white, black, red, as I've not done anything to you, anything to us. And you see white, red, black, green, and generally you will feel different. Some you will feel neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Some you think, I like this color. And some you think, I don't like this color. So it's really looking at kind of tonality cannot be taken apart in a way. We have to talk about it separately for the sake of discourse. But it cannot be taken apart from the fact that you have the senses, you have the contact, and you have tonality. They all come together. And within that, you have also the element of contact, perception, and tonality also coming together. So I'm only going to talk for 20 minutes, and it's very hard to talk about tonality, only 20 minutes. But this will be a start, and then we can have a discussion. One of the texts I base myself a lot on is text in the early sutta, which the Buddha talks about 108 Vedanas, 108 possibility of feeling tone. So here, we're not going to try to find each of them, but it just shows that this tonality of experience through contact, through the senses, is multifaceted. So the Buddha, for example, say, first it has two aspects, physical and mental. And that's why some people put more emphasis on the physical aspect of tonality, like Goenka, Vipassana method, and other people might look at it more in the mental aspect. Then you have the three aspects you might be very familiar with, which is pleasant, unpleasant, and neither. And then you have various other ones. One of the interesting one within that, I personally find, is that the Buddha in the text said that you can experience tonality in an ordinary way, and you can experience tonality in an insightful way. So in a way, that's where the freedom would be. Because the Buddha says in connection to tonality, we have underlying tendencies, which we generally are familiar with, which is when something is pleasant, I want more of it. When something is unpleasant, I don't want it at all. And then when something is neither, if there is insight, it can become pleasant. If there is no insight, it can become unpleasant, as in, it's boring. So you have, so the point, I would say, of the second foundation of mindfulness, the feeling tone, is really about observing our feeling life. How does it feel? Because often what happens is that we have a contact through the sense and we have a tonality, but we're not aware of it. However, that tonality has a kind of slight triggering mechanism, which means 10 minutes later, we are in a disturbing emotion. So in a way, you start with the tonality, which becomes more like a feeling, which becomes more like an emotion, which then becomes more like a disturbing emotion. But by the time we see the disturbing emotion, it's kind of a little difficult to kind of, now I must stop. Because in a way, now it has a certain energy of its own, it has been amplified, so to speak. So in a way, the idea of being mindful of feeling tone is to really see, oh, what am I experiencing? And how do we know it? Basically, we know it in the body and in the mind. And so personally, I put also together tonality and change. So we're not, a mindfulness of feeling tones is not asking you to be aware of all internal feeling tone and all external tonality at any given moment. Because at any given moment, you could have 6 different ones. You could hear something pleasant, you could see something unpleasant, and in terms of sensation, it might be neither. But so in a way, most of the time, at one level, we don't need to be so aware of them. What we need to be aware of is when there is a change. Like suddenly, I feel unpleasant. Or, I feel pleasant. I want this. I have to have this. And so in a way, the idea is in the body, in the mind, in terms of the meditation, how does it feel? So in a way, we could talk, if you want to talk more psychologically, at one level, you could say, you have a pleasant 0 to 10, unpleasant minus 1 to 10, minus 10, and then in the middle, you have neither, which we could consider a baseline, and we go up and we go down. And so the other things that come into question and we can discuss is that the tonality is not going to be to the same degree all the time. Sometimes it will be just light. You have like, it will be very light. You hear something, you see something, and you notice something has changed, shifted. But being it light, if you just be with it, generally it disappears on its own. Then you have the second level of tonality, you could call it, when the pleasantness or the unpleasantness or the neither is a little higher. And at the same time, it's repetitive, but not all the time. But you seem to go back to a certain either pleasant or unpleasant or neither. And you know it, you know the taste of it. And you also know with the mindfulness that when you feel this, it might lead you to do this. It might lead you to go and have more cakes. It might lead you to say something nasty to somebody or whatever it might be. And so in a way, the mindfulness is to see what are the conditions which makes me experience that tonality and react in that way. So for that, in a way, you need, of course, to have senses, but you need to have a contact, which you don't have all the time. But you have enough time that it comes again and again. So, we kind of noticing the condition, but also the contributing factor. You could have the same contact, the same tonality, but if you're stressed or if you're tired and ill, you're going to amplify. If you're not stressed, tired, and ill, you won't. So again, you have this kind of difference. Then you have what I call intensity. And intensity is when often you have a contact which is really kind of quite high. In intensity, it's shocking, and then it makes you feel really, like you could say, either +5 or +6 pleasant, or -5 unpleasant, and then it's a shock to the whole system. And then you're going to experience that unpleasant tonality, for example, for quite some time. Because it's a shock to the system just by meditating or trying to reason with yourself. It doesn't work. And the meditation might help you in terms of creating space for a few seconds. Go back to the breath, back to the body, back to the sound, back to loving kindness. You create space. But that's not going to make it just go, because it has a certain energy. But if you don't amplify it, like all things, the tonality will pass. What is also interesting is to see that, to me, in terms of change, in terms of the tonality, is, and that's why it's interesting to also do this in meditation, is you hear a pleasant sound. When the pleasant sounds go, does a pleasant tonality goes with it, or either an echo? Or you are sitting in meditation, you're aware of sensation, and then the sensation, let's say there is an unpleasant sensation, when it goes, what is interesting there is that when the unpleasant sensation goes, immediately, generally, you have pleasant. Because that's also what's said in the text. When the unpleasant disappear, it becomes pleasant. When the pleasant disappear, it becomes unpleasant. So this is also something to be aware of. That you might have a very pleasant experience, but then it stops, and just a stopping of it becomes unpleasant, but you still have the echo of the pleasantness, while underneath you have the unpleasantness of the stopping of it, and then you might be saying something nasty to somebody who has not done anything because of that thing underneath. So it's kind of like with the tonality, so we kind of, then you have, for example, when something continues, you have a sound or you have a sensation, and they continue. And so at the beginning of the sensation of the sound, there is a tonality. If the sensation of the sound continues, does the tonality remain the same? Or does it increase? Does it decrease? So in a way, we can kind of look at the tonality in that way. We can explore it in many different ways. And so the point is not to stop the tonality, pleasant, unpleasant, or neither. But the point is more to be aware of it when it happens, especially if it's a specific shift. And especially if one could say it's a special contact, which has a special trigger. And when we feel a certain way. And of course, you could call it many different things because it becomes different emotion, anger, anxiety, sadness, or whatever it is. But generally, before it becomes an emotion, it is at the beginning an unpleasant contact. And then the question is, how am I with the unpleasantness? With the pleasantness, it needs to be generally +5 for us to notice it. So if we do mindfulness of feeling tone, actually the pleasant tonality, the range is going to increase. With the unpleasant tonality, we only need -1 to feel like it's -5. We amplify very fast with the unpleasant. And so again, with the unpleasant, if we become more mindful of it, we can see, oh, -1, I don't need to engage in the same way as -5 or -10. They're not the same thing. They're not to the same degree. So this is what I wanted to say to start with. So I hope it's kind of relatively clear. And then what I thought we could do is do the meditation for about 10 minutes, and I will guide you through it. And then after the meditation, then I can hear your question, your comments, what is it that is not clear about tonality? What is it you want to know more about? How does that sound? Shall we do that? Okay. So if you find a comfortable posture, and so when we do the mindfulness of feeling tone, we basically use 3 anchors to start with: the breath, body sensation, and sound. So we find a comfortable posture, then gently we rest our attention on the breath, on the air that we breathe. So we feel the contact of the cooler air going through our nostril and come back and come out a little warmer. How does it feel, the air coming a little cooler? What's the tonality of that contact? How does it feel when the air come out a little warmer? What's the tonality of that contact? Often what we experience with the breath, with the contact with the air, is a tonality called neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Now we move our attention to sensations in the body, and maybe for the sensation of contact, the hands on each other, the buttock on the cushion on the chair, the air on the cheeks. What's the tonality of that contact? Now we could also pay attention to a specific sensation. So you might feel a specific sensation in the back, in the knee, in the shoulders, on the face. What's the tonality of that experience? If the sensation goes, does the tonality goes with it? If the sensation continues, does the tonality remain the same? Now we could open our attention to sound, listening to the sounds, to the music of the world. When we hear a sound, what's the tonality of that contact? When the sound goes, does the tonality goes with it? If the sound continues, does the tonality remain the same? When you hear the bell, what's the tonality? So thank you for your practice. If you want to stretch a little on your chair, please feel free to do so. If you need to stand up again, feel free to do that.